Good morning and welcome on this live African safari. My name's Brent. I'm going to be your guide. We've got Wium, aka the wildebeest, on camera. We have Scotty and Bryan on the other vehicle, and Tara and Nikki in final control. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Quite a chilly morning. It's about 10 degrees Celsius, 50 Fahrenheit. As you can see, we started off on some hooded vultures, so we're quite close to where the Nkuhuma Pride have this buffalo kill, and we just decided to have a nice little morning sunrise with the vultures. And as you saw, a Birchall starling flew into the top of the tree while we were watching those vultures. So we're going to make our way towards the lions now. I did hear a little bit of growling and snarling last night, so at the moment it's very, very quiet, so they might possibly be fast asleep. There are a lot of hyena tracks in the area. Doesn't look like enough hyenas to possibly put pressure on the lions yet, but we'll find out shortly. For those of you who are new viewers, welcome. We are live, as I just mentioned. We're also interactive, so you can ask us questions about what we're seeing in the African bush, and you can do that by emailing us on questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter. So, and to all our old viewers, always great to have you on board, and keep sending those questions through. Let's go have a look what the Nkuhuma Pride's got up to over the evening. Looks like some of them are still feeding. Oh, a male lion has arrived. So this has changed the dynamic completely. It looks like one of the Matimba males has arrived, and that's a very good sign for the pride, and the fact that the hyenas definitely won't come in with a male lion. And I just saw the hyena tracks there, but it's not a good pride. We're just going to stop a little bit further away. If there, we'll move in closer shortly. But as you can see, the rest of the pride are off the carcass, and the male is dominating the carcass. So it's a bit of a catch-22 for the Nkuhumas, in the fact that they're going to lose quite a fair share of meat to that big male lion, but also what meat is there, I doubt a hyena is going to come attempt anything with an adult male lion there. It's amazing how much they change the dynamic and how petrified hyenas are of big male lions. And it looks like the ginger Matimba male. That could possibly be all that snarling and I heard last night when he would arrived. Welcome, Andrew. Looks like one of the Matimbas has also joined this position. So here we go, we're at the buffalo carcass. You can see the majority of the pride lying here, and then that big Matimba male feeding on the carcass. So it seems like all the burying of stomach contents and whatnot didn't work out in the end, and one of the male lions managed to catch a whiff, and he has now laid claim to what is left of this buffalo. actually up in the tree above the lions is a little hooded vulture. So the smallest of the vulture species, the most tolerated by the lions quite often as well. They don't really feed off the carcass. Their beaks are not designed for that. They feed off little scraps and will also eat lion feces that is around the carcass. So optimizing a little niche in the carrion department is the hooded vulture. Oh, come on onto the carcass quickly. This lioness is trying to creep in, and I'm quite sure that Mr. Matimba is not going to tolerate it. You can see these lionesses are, and they're doing the exact same thing as we watched the sub-adult do last night. Sort of try crawl on their belly. You're not going to notice me coming in. So quite interestingly, we've got the big adult male lion here, and Junior is still here. So obviously the males haven't really started to push him yet, and young Junior looks quite content there with his full belly, doing a bit of preening. So obviously the males haven't yet decided that Junior is too much of a threat, and they haven't decided to chase him out yet. It could be the fact that the male is quite focused on feeding at the moment, and maybe a little bit later he might chase him off, or if Junior shows any signs of trying to mate, quickly up onto there, just in case. See, they're sneaking forward, and every time they move, the male actually gives a little low growl. So keeping the lionesses at bay. So having this big Matimba male here has sparked quite a few questions. One from Tim Painter. Is this not time for Junior to leave while this adult male is here? Obviously not. The male hasn't chased Junior yet, and that's not to say he won't over the next day, but he hasn't as of yet. So very interesting to watch and see. Junior doesn't look particularly perturbed. And you can see that sub-adult to the back. It looks like she's got the hip bone that she's chewing on there. Here you go, that big male lion is moving the carcass. So we're looking at the ginger Matimba male at the moment, and Meladia is wondering, where's Hairy Belly? And that is a question I'm not sure. Last I heard, he was down to the east of us. And quite often male lions will split up in their patrolling of territory and only call for backup when needed. So it's possible that Hairy Belly is still quite far from here. Last I heard, they were feeding off a buffalo carcass that was killed by the Styx lions. So they're just running around and stealing buffalo from the ladies. We're going to try and move around a bit so we can get a better view of that big male feeding on the carcass. So, you can see Junior's belly's decreased quite heavily in size, which probably means he hasn't had a chance to feed since the Matimba male arrived, and that male's been dominating the carcass. It's difficult to guess when he arrived, but Junior's definitely lost a bit of body fat. He is still quite fat, but definitely not nearly as fat as he was yesterday. You can see him displaying the phlegm and grimace, and what he's done is he's smelt the urine. He's taking it over an organ in the top of his mouth called the Jacobson's organ, and the female's not too impressed with him. There we go. So what they're doing is taking the scent over, and it's a sort of a form of communication. From her urine, he is able to smell. She's coming in estrus, and he's not very happy, and it looks like he might be thinking about trying to mount her, but I think he might get a smack. And that doesn't necessarily mean that she's in estrus. I think Junior, at his age, with all those hormones rushing around in his body, he's just a little bit confused about what to do. So they're saying that Jacobson organ, so after smelling the urine, there's a whole bunch of things that he'll be able to pick up, estrus, age, all that type of stuff, whether the female's about to become fertile. As I said, I don't think Junior is quite aware of what he's doing, and as I said, a lot of these movements and stuff in line are instinctive. So he will be drawn. Here we go. Enough of that, young man. The big Matimba lifted his head briefly and then just carried on feeding. We're just going to stick with these two at the moment, because he might try again. Flop. So she obviously got to get some good feeding in before that male arrived. And let's see. Looking a little bit sheepish now. What a strong cold wind that's just picking up, coming in from the north. So a really fascinating little bit of behavior we watched there. And George Ann from Illinois is wondering if the ginger male sees that, wouldn't he chase Ginger, or wouldn't it cause him to attack Ginger? At the moment, I think the ginger male is very focused on filling his belly, and will worry about such trifles later. But it is a possibility, particularly when young male lions start showing all this behavior, that they will become far more of a target for the dominant males. Now let's move around and have a look at what Ginger is up to. We're just going to try to find a way in opposite the carcass, which has been pulled around a bit during the night and moved. We're going to have to find a new access point, and also the easiest access point has got 3 lions lying in it, and we don't want to drive over them. So watching quite a bit of this, look at that. It's amazing that male lions are quite often tolerate younger individuals in the pride feeding rather than the adults. And we can see now that one of those little sub-adult females has managed to get in there. How's that feel? Good. You can see he's tolerated the young sub-adults coming in to feed, whereas when any of the adult females even move close to the carcass, he gets a bit growly with them. And you can see we said the most of the meat when we left yesterday was in the forequarters, in the front shoulders, neck and brisket, and he looks like he's done quite a bit of eating on that area, and it doesn't look like he's slowing down now. He's gorging himself completely. So we had a good look inside the carcass for fly eggs yesterday, and Junebug's just commenting saying there must be many maggots by now. Junebug, at this time of the year, there are not that many flies, so there are not too many maggots, and I think with the male arriving, I think a lot of those fly eggs have been eaten, and that happens to a lot of them. In summer it would be more apparent, but so far I can't see any maggots whatsoever, or carrion beetles, but they might come later. I think if it had just been the pride here, this carcass might have lasted another full day. Now it's definitely going to be gone before the end of today. And it's amazing, that's just one adult male lion sort of adding his considerable weight and appetite to the situation. And you can see that this young lioness now chewing on the edge of the ribs, on the sort of cartilaginous edge, trying to get a little bit of that meat. And it's amazing if we look at the ribs how they've actually managed to get the meat from between the ribs, even though there's not much meat there. And you can see on the top side how there's a gap where there wasn't yesterday, and they have managed to get that meat off. You can always see the edge of the ribs always look a bit more chewed. The bone's a bit softer there. And using a combination of those premolars and whatnot on the side to break off a bit, and then using the incisors, which are between the canines, to pull any tasty treat off. But luckily for the Nkuhumas, they got the best part of the meat first, and the rump and all that, and the male lion arrived a little bit later. But he is doing a very good job at demolishing what meat's left around the neck. with lion prides, almost all the females are related. Therefore, all of these lions would be related to junior, sisters, cousins, mothers, aunts. And that is one of the reasons he will be pushed off eventually. It is a sort of a natural lion thing to avoid inbreeding. Because if he was to stay with the pride indefinitely, the females would mate with him when they came into estrus, and that obviously is detrimental to the genetics of the pride. So eventually there would be quite a lot of inbreeding, and that's also one of the reasons big male lions are seldom dominant for more than 4 years. And what happens is that lionesses will generally only have their first litter of cubs of about 4 years old. So that's normally at around the time of a pride takeover or males being pushed out of an area. So animals quite often through different sort of evolutionary traits end up looking after themselves. But in some cases inbreeding does happen in lions in the wild, and they have sort of counted this, that with lions they can inbreed, they say up to 6 times without any genetic defects, but after that 6th time strange things start to happen. You get lions with full bodies and tiny short legs and things like that. Obviously in a system like this that doesn't really happen very often, and there's quite a high turnover of male lions. And so that goes into answering Judy's question, which was, are the females and males in this pride juniors, sisters and cousins? And they are, and aunts and mother. So far I don't think he's had a successful coupling with any of them. If any of them were in a proper estrus, these big males would be around and would definitely then put a lot more pressure on junior. Ooh. So if we come back here, you can see that lioness to the back left there. She's slowly almost inched her way towards the edge of the carcass without the male managing to notice. And I think in the next couple of minutes she'll try getting a little bit closer, and she might get a big reprimand from that male lion.
All right.
There we go. You heard that. He just looked at her and gave that low. Oh. So now she pretends to be asleep again. And then when he's not paying attention, she might inch another centimeter forward. As we continue to watch the deconstruction of this buffalo carcass, Lucy from South Bend, Indiana, would like to know, would the lions eat the ribs and the bigger bones? If they're very hungry, they might chew on the ribs quite a bit, which these lions aren't at the moment. So the majority of those ribs will probably be left when the lions move off from this carcass. And the bigger bones, even though lions have an incredibly powerful jaws, they are unable to crush them, and a lot of the bigger bones will be left for animals like hyenas, and even some of the bones in the buffalo will be too big for a hyena to crush, so they will stay out here in the bush and will slowly disintegrate with the sun and weather and other elements taking effect. Also, you will find lots of little rodents that will, rodents will chew on the bones and other animals to get calcium. So the hooded vultures are on the ground at the back there. They're probably going to go feed off some feces, that they've seen dropped. There we go. So they'll be able to pick up enough nutrients from lion feces. So really, really specialized little vulture species, adept at picking up little pieces and scraps of meat that might have been dropped, but also if that's not available to them, they will. Oh, there's a white-backed vulture landing just above us now. So one of the bigger vulture species, and they'll be waiting for the lions to give them half a chance, and they'll pounce down to try and get what they can out of this carcass. We've got the ginger Matimba male lion here, and that's led Bree to asking a question that do a coalition of males often service more than one pride of lionesses? Most definitely, Bree. I mean, as far as I know, the Matimbas are dominant over at least 3 prides. So the Nkuhuma Pride, which we are with now, the Styx Breakaway Pride, and another pride called the Talamati Pride. So very interesting that they will often, even though those females will fight amongst each other for territory and home range, they will all fall under the same home range of a single big male lion. And there's that vulture just moved slightly. Oh no, sorry, another one has arrived. And you can see him looking down longingly at the carcass. Incredible eyesight these animals have, the vultures have, and they will be able to spot this from miles up in the air. Well, not exactly miles, but very, very high. And they get that height by using thermals. When it's warmer, might be, if she sneaks any further, might get into trouble. There you go, you saw that ground, you saw that tail whoop, and the dust come off that tail whip. It's a very, very common sign of aggression in lions, and especially when you are watching them carefully, you watch for that tail. If the tail starts whipping, it means that the animal's about to get aggressive. So for those of you who might have joined us a little bit late in this morning, just a quick little recap. We are sitting with the Nkuhuma Pride and one of the adult Matimbas feeding off on what's left of that buffalo they caught a few nights ago. And we've got a question from Angie in Ohio. Angie is wondering why the big male lion will let the sub-adult lioness feed, but not the adults. Well, obviously, Angie, what he wants to do is let as much of his genes survive to adulthood, and then obviously, hopefully, mate, and then spread his genes further. So that's why he would let that sub-adult feed. And she also doesn't eat as much as the lionesses, but that's not the reason. It's just till she's become an adult and started breeding, and he would like her to reach that adulthood, because in his mind, even though it's not possibly true, he is the sire of this young lioness, even though in a lot of cases nearly 50% of lion cubs to a pride are sired by outside males, but he doesn't know that. So there's a 50-50 chance that this is his daughter, and so he wants her to reach adulthood and start breeding and propagate his genes. So that is why he will let her feed, but we're going to sit here with these lions for a bit longer and watch what's going on, and if anything exciting starts to happen, we will come straight back. And with this male lion being here now, I think the chances of hyenas coming in has greatly reduced, but we're going to cross across to Scotty. He's going to bid you a good morning, and we can see what he's been up to, but we'll be back with you a little later in the show.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome on board with myself, Scott, and I'm teamed up with Bryan on camera today. This is actually the first time we've stopped for a few moments this morning. We've been hot on the trail of Shadow and her cub Sindile, two leopards that were unfortunate last night because a clan of hyena came in and stole the kill that they had made. Sometime yesterday, we only found the kill about 5 minutes towards the end of yesterday's broadcast, and it was a fully grown male impala that the mother Shadow probably killed during the course of the day, and then went back to call her cub Sindile and bring him to the kill, and that's what helped us to find that kill. We had tracks of hers heading down one road and then straight back on the same road with her cub in tow, and with a bit of scratching around we got lucky and found the carcass nestled under a bush. The problem is Shadow did not hoist it, and therefore made it an easy opportunity for the hyena to steal, and they did. We then followed their tracks about 1.5 miles from where they lost the kill up towards Red Dam on Arathusa, where they had a drink, and then from there they've headed in our general direction. So now what we've done is we're looping around the block to try and make sure that they have not crossed out yet, and once we've established that, then we can start delving deeper into this thick bush and try and track down where they are. Now what could have happened is that she may have already left Sindile somewhere in this area and headed off to try and find their next meal. Even though they had a fair amount of the carcass, we're not sure how early or how late in the night the hyena stole the kill, but they'll still, or she will still be very interested in trying to secure their next meal. So I'm confident we're going to find them. We've not only here alone, there's also Sean from Arathusa who's lending us a hand in following these tracks, and with a little bit more luck and persistence, I think we're going to get lucky. The reason why we stopped here, there was 4 male impalas, and who knows, possibly Shadow was already stalking them, but we've spent some time here and they seem quite relaxed. So now we will continue on, making our way back to the position of the last tracks, where we may have to get off and spend some time on foot in order to try and fine-tune the search. The section of road that I'm driving on now is quite rocky in patches, which makes it difficult to see tracks, so I'm just going to go extra slowly. But they are close. I'm sure they're not too far from us. Or at least Sindile, the young male cub, who's approaching 12 months of age. And I'm very happy to have Sean helping us, because he has a tracker with him who sits on the hood of his vehicle. But in a scenario like this, he'll be off the bonnet and probably in the bush following the last tracks. Oh, this road is terrible to see tracks on. It's very rocky. We'll just creep along. Well, isn't it awesome that not only was there some change at Shadow and Sindile's kill last night, but also at the kill made by the Nkuhuma Pride. And great to hear that a big male from the Matimba coalition has joined and seems to be spicing up that sighting a little bit. and some interesting behavior going on there, and I've been told Brent's explaining in depth the intricacies between male coalitions and how they treat young males, their sons, and also interesting how they're treating the lioness within the pride. Now, just give me a second here to hop out and check quite carefully for some tracks, and while we continue hot on the trail of these tracks, we're going to send you back to the lion. Enjoy, we'll see you later.
Welcome back, everyone, and you can see the Matimba male stood up. I was hoping he might pull the carcass a little bit. He still might, to try and get at that neck meat. There we go. And you can see how incredibly strong that male lion is. You can see how they use their claws to try and keep the things in place. And you quite often see when a male lion pulls a carcass, you can pull the other lions that are feeding on the carcass with it. And you can see that female off to the left is sneaking like a centimeter at a time. She's got her nose up against the buffalo's leg. And there we go, very, very sneakily trying to get a little bit of a feed without the male noticing. And if she can, she might try to pull off a piece and run off with it. And that can often lead to quite a bit of aggression from the male. So now that we've got this quite interesting situation of an adult male lion and the dominant male, one of the dominant males in this area, and Junior in the same position, Blair is asking whether if Junior remains submissive, will they tolerate him longer? Well, Blair Junior will always be submissive to these dominant males, and they might tolerate him a little bit longer, but I don't think too much longer before his sort of instincts take over and will literally make too much of a nuisance of himself for the males to tolerate. He just looked up there. I thought there might be something he had seen, but looking at that, I just think he's lifted his head. So we've got the Matimbas here, and there's so much lion movement happening at the moment that Ginny and Sean would like to know, are the Matimba males in danger from the Birmingham boys? I would say most definitely it's a coalition of 5 male lions. I'm not sure of the age, but I think they're getting close to 5 now. So they are definitely getting to a position where they are going to start challenging a coalition like the Matimbas. Also, I have heard them start roaring, so they definitely are starting to make their presence known. Whereas when they were a bit younger, they probably would have snuck around the edges, trying not to be heard. Now they are definitely making themselves heard in what is very traditional Matimba territory in Buffelshoek. I was coming in here. But there is a definite possibility that the Matimbas would be threatened by that. And the second half of the question is, would the Matimbas then return to their brothers? Well, I'm not 100% sure where the rest of the coalition are. And it's unlikely that all 5 males are actually related, that possibly 2 or 3 of them have joined together at different times. And it is a very interesting dynamic that's happening at the moment. I think they would, depending on how badly they got beaten and if they got injured in a fight with those Birmingham boys, it would depend a lot on, here we go. It could be quite interesting if the other lionesses start also coming in to feed. And we can see that lioness has managed to sneak her nose in around where the rump once was. Here we go, coming in. I think there might be another sneak attack on the carcass, inch by inch. Oh, there's someone else. There's another one coming in. You can see the male might actually pull and move the car. There we go. Oh. This is nice. Oh, that was a sub-adult who did that. So we're just going to keep quiet and watch the dynamics that are going to go on. Now, once the males left, it gives a chance for the females, and the females are less tolerant of that sub-adult, and we might see a bit of slapping around. There's some more greeting. Then let's just stick on the carcass. There might be some smacking and fighting. As another lioness comes in to feed, this could get a little bit tight. There's not that much meat. You can see that tail flick right in front of us, and the male lion, the big male lion, is now doing the exact same thing that Junior did earlier, and sniffing the back end of the lionesses. And that little sub-adult's getting more and more aggressive because it probably realizes that its best feeding chance is diminishing quite rapidly with all these other lions moving in. And now the next little sub-adult, we're going to stay on this shot now, but is also making its way. So because they're so full, they're tolerating a little bit more cheek from this sub-adult. And also, in lion behavior, you can see the others probably not as hungry at the moment and not as aggressive. You notice the sub-adult's ears are completely flat back, and that is a very big sign of aggression. But that could change in a couple of seconds if she sort of smacks the wrong lioness, and the lioness decides that she's had enough of this behavior. What would be really interesting now is to see what Junior would do if he moved into this position to start feeding. But I will keep an eye on him. He's lying off to the north of us. The next sub-adult to join the soiree. Go ahead. As for orbs, I'm only stationed here. And here, this could get quite interesting now, so we're just going to keep quiet and watch, because Junior might join as well. I can't actually see where the ginger male's gone at the moment. Where's he going?
He's lying behind us.
He's lying directly behind our vehicle. He's obviously... So you can see, as I've been saying, as the carcass gets less and less, sometimes the aggression gets more and more. Where there's a lot of meat, there's not a lot of pressure for them to fight over what's left. But now there's not much meat left, and they know they're probably going to have to move off sometime, possibly this evening. So everyone's trying to make the most out of all the meat that's left. So the aggression is definitely going to rise amongst the lions now. So we've noticed now that big Matimba male has moved off. The rest of the pride has got in and started feeding. And Joe on Twitter said, notes, but the lioness has done the hunting, but gets the last say in the eating. What is a male lion's purpose apart from mating? Well, Joe, it's actually quite an interesting thing, and quite often if the males are with a pride, they are very instrumental in bringing down big prey like buffalo, giraffe, hippo. The lionesses are capable, and Junior's doing the sneak, they are capable of bringing down without an adult male lion, as we saw with the Nkuhuma Pride. But the male lion's other purpose, main purpose apart from mating, is very important. So they will dominate an area and they will stop other male lions coming in, because if other male lions come in, you are going to get constantly cubs being killed, because the male lions will want the females to come into estrus and start breeding their cubs, their offspring. So probably one of the more important things, Junior, is to keep the area devoid of other male lions that would kill their progeny and the lioness's cubs. That is possibly the most important. As we can see, there's a lot of feeding and a little bit of aggression still going on. And Noreen is wondering, what is the product? Oh, Noreen, I'll get your question in a second. As Junior gets into the aggression, might step up a notch. Junior is putting his head right inside that rib cage. It's quite a clever maneuver because it's less likely to be hit when you've got ribs above you. Noreen, I will get to your question shortly, but while we've got this really interesting dynamic going on with the feeding, and it'll make a lot of sense when I answer, but we're just going to listen to these incredible sounds from the lions for a bit. Isn't this noise incredible, guys? Seem to have sort of sorted their spots for now, but that can change in a matter of seconds. Vium, can you see? Oh, Ginger, what's he up to?
He's just being fat.
Is he being fat and flat?
Yep.
Yeah, I can't see Ginger from where I am. He's behind Vium. But if Ginger were to come back in here, he would rush in and chase all of them off. It looks like he's had a sufficient meal to start. So back to the question about feeding dynamics. The second part of the question was, do they ever let the lame, injured feed first? So Noreen, unfortunately not. Lions are very much out for themselves when it comes to food, and if there's a lame or injured or sickly lion, it will be at the back of the queue for feeding. And very much in a lion pride, it is survival of the fittest. And sometimes an injured lion or sickly lion might be able to survive a bit longer because the prides kill a big carcass like a buffalo. So there will be moments when there's not so much competition around the carcass, and they are able to sort of get in there for a bit of a meal. And then also cubs, quite often cubs are tolerated by the males while they're feeding, but not so much by the other lionesses. I actually see the saliva dripping out of Junior's mouth there. You can see how their ears are flat back in aggression there. Another sign of aggression with lions. Watch their ears and their tails are two very good giveaways. At the moment, not too much swinging tail, and the tail will literally whip at speed if there's proper aggression. That looks like. So obviously it's quite exciting being this close to lions feeding and fighting, and Brenda and Junebug saying Aunt Wium and I are a bit scared being this close to all this high tension. Fortunately for us, Brenda and Junebug, the lions, are far more involved in getting the meat off the buffalo and arguing amongst each other for it. They barely pay us any attention, as you can see. The four closest to us have got their heads tucked into this buffalo and their tails turned to us. So I feel we're quite safe here, and the aggression is definitely towards each other and not towards us.
Ginger is wandering away.
He's walking away?
Yeah.
So apparently the big male lion is walking away. I can't see him yet. Even if I bend, I can't see him. Which way is he going down towards the road?
Yeah, if you look at the road.
Okay, there, I got him now. So, obviously, it'll depend whether Ginger's going to go lie down somewhere else a little bit further away, or he actually might decide that there's not enough meat here. There's no females in estrus, so no point in hanging about with the Pride. And you can see Junior's actually cutting through the hide there, and he's trying to get the little bits of fat and meat off the edge of the hide. As we see a Junior there, chewing up on the little hooded vultures just landed behind them. There he is. So basically what Ginger's doing now, he's not being as aggressive as he would sometimes in a carcass. That's possibly because he has eaten a lot more than everyone else and he's feeling quite sated. The lionesses are taking advantage of what's left, and even watching Ginger feed now, he's not going for the prime bits, he's just sort of feeding, I think, for the sake of feeding, because the others are all feeding, and the carcass is going to be finished quite soon. So I think he's just nice and fat, and like this other lioness now, she can't actually eat anymore, she's just stopped, but she's going to keep her paw there in case someone else decides to try and feed there. So we're going to stick here with the lions, but we're going to head off to Scotty to see what he's been up to. But we'll keep you updated in what's happening with the Nkuhumas and the Matimba.
Well, we've got great news, and I know you've been watching some incredible action over at the Buffalo Kill with the Nkuhuma Pride and the Matimbas, but take a closer look behind me. It's very difficult to see, but as Bryan zooms in, you'll notice why we are so excited. That is young Sindile, the son of the two leopards that we were tracking earlier this morning. We haven't seen any sign of his mother yet, and we must give credit to Race, which is Sean's tracker, who, like I said, was off on foot, following up on the last tracks as both Sean and I looped around the area on the roads, and he located this leopard on foot and then called us in. And for those of you who may have just joined, it's important to know a little bit of the recent history of this leopard and its mother. Basically, yesterday afternoon, in all likelihood between game drives, she made a kill. And then while we were driving around Arathusa late yesterday evening, we found her tracks, as well as his, heading back on a trail that she had already moved down, so basically backtracking on top of her own footprints, which is always a great indicator that she's taking her cover. Around, we got lucky and we actually found the kill. She had killed a fully grown male impala, and when we arrived on the scene, they had fed on a fairly decent portion of it, but they'd probably only been there a couple of hours. Sadly then, in the course of last night, hyena came in, caught wind of the prey, the kill, and they've stolen it. We then followed the tracks of this leopard and its mother about 2 miles to where we are now. They stopped and drank along the way. So he will have some impala in his belly, and that's why we can expect him to be quite relaxed this morning and not too playful with a relatively full belly. We're not too sure where his mother is. It's very thick in this riverbed, the Marakeni riverbed that we are in currently. And she could be lying up nearby, or she may have already headed off in search of their next meal. Now, because the bush is very thick here, we can only get 2 vehicles into the sighting. And what I'm going to suggest doing is, there's a lot of the vehicles in this area who are very interested in coming and viewing this leopard. So, because it's asleep now, it would be a good opportunity for us to make space and hopefully rejoin the sighting a little bit later. And also there's such great action going on with the Nkuhumas and that remains of the buffalo kill. So we're going to send you back there, and we're going to head off, or maybe you can join us. I'll just see what exactly is going on with those buffalo, but we're going to carry on, make space for the other vehicles, and then possibly rejoin you a little bit later once they've showed all their guests. They usually only come in for about 10 or 15 minutes to have a quick look, as they've got lots of animals to see in a short space of time, whereas we are fortunately not in that position, and we can go and enjoy things at a more leisurely pace. So we're going to let you have one last visual of this spotty Sindile in the grass, and then link across to Brent with the buffalo kill.
You can see that little hooded vultures found the hip bones, or pieces of bone that have been dragged off the carcass, and they're using that very fine beak of theirs to pick tiny little bits of meat off there. And obviously that's first choice for them, a bit better than lion feces, but they are not at all disgusted by lion feces, and they will eat it given the opportunity. So we're looking, the vultures we've been looking at, we just started on. Diane, Michigan, is unsure whether it's a white-headed vulture or what. Diane, the vulture with the white head behind the lions, there is actually a hooded vulture. It is not a white-headed vulture, and the first white-backed vulture just hit the ground, but I will show him now. So that is a hooded vulture. White-headed vultures are quite a lot more rare. They're actually probably one of the rarest vultures in the whole area, and if I remember correctly, there's less than 15 breeding pairs in the Greater Kruger, and I've never seen a white-headed vulture in this area. And there's a white-backed vulture, which is the second vulture species we have at the moment, and he's also found some scraps to pick up. And the lions will be far more tolerant of the hooded vulture than the white-backed vulture. So we watched quite some interesting behavior. We watched one of the lionesses bury the stomach contents yesterday. So they actually didn't bury the stomach itself, and Penny Pine was wondering that whether the vultures would find that hidden under the pile of leaves and grass. So they actually buried the stomach contents, so the undigested grass that would have been in the buffalo stomach. And from what I can see, they've actually eaten the stomach lining already, so the lions have eaten the stomach. Another vulture coming in there now. So the vultures are getting a bit brave. They know that this carcass is nearly done for the lions. So there's more. We've got 4 whitebacks that I can see, 2 hooded, and I know there's a few more a bit further out on the trees, and they'll be waiting. And you can see how difficult it is for a vulture in a tree that's got branches, and that's why they generally prefer those dead trees where they can move their wings easily. And you can see he's having a bit of trouble balancing amongst the branches there. So Junior is actually eating. He's just bitten off a piece of skin. Oh, there we go. Nice for him. And you can see the vulture's getting a bit more brave, heading to the ground. And what might happen is that the lions might, oh, another one's arriving. The vultures are coming in now. You might find that the lions at some point might get a little bit upset with the vultures and chase them off. So we've been asked what happens to the hide, and I think these lions are taking full opportunity of whatever is left in this buffalo, and Junior is actually chewing off and eating pieces of the hide, even though it's probably the lowest nutrient value out of the whole carcass. They are taking advantage of it. And there are still subcutaneous fat deposits on the underside of the hide, and those obviously, even though they are quite small and the majority of them would have been eaten off already, they are still quite high in nutrient, so they are going for those and eating the whole hide itself. So now we have, you can see 3 or 4 white-backed vultures behind the lions on the ground, and the 2 hooded closer. So we can see that the one lioness is still on the face, and there we have a look at the horn, and the horn is made out of keratin, so it's undigestible to the lions. And Dorf in Pittsburgh has been wondering what will happen to that large set of horns from the buffalo once all the lions and the hyenas and the vultures are finished. So what will happen is that it will stay here, but there is this insect species they're called horn moths, and they will lay their eggs in that moth, and their larvae is able to digest keratin. It's one of the only species in the world that is able to digest hair and keratin, and they will actually, over time, feed off that whole keratin outer section of the buffalo horn, and eventually we'll just have sort of the white bone that's underneath there, and even that will disappear with the elements, the sun and the wind and the rain, and gnawing on by rodents and other things. So if we have a look at that lioness there on the right there, then it looks like she's got a little, yep, she got a bit of a smack during one of those, and she's got a little scratch on her neck, and you can see it's bleeding. Nothing serious, and that happens very often with lions while they're feeding at a carcass. So, having a look at that lioness who's got a little scar, and we have been hearing a bit of aggression, or that growling and that, but from the lions as they are feeding on the remnants of this buffalo. Terry in Santa Ana knows, how aggressive can they get? Well, Terry, from the aggression we've seen today on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say this is probably a 2, and they can go all the way to a 10. It all depends on as when they last ate, how big, how much meat's available. So they have been eating a lot on this buffalo. There we go, Terry. That went up to about a 3. So it's still not very aggressive for lions. And on a small carcass like an impala, and this many lions, they can get up to a 10, and far more aggressive than we're seeing at the moment. They can bite each other. Normally they just hit each other with those, and hook each other with those claws, but they can bite each other. So I'd say the most aggression we've seen so far this morning is a 4. Come to the right where this lioness is sneaking in. There we go, that could be the next. Oh, she's found a little. Oh. And the reason the aggression has stepped up now is because there's less and less of this buffalo carcass left, and so as it gets smaller and smaller, we will see aggression get bigger and bigger. Possibly because they're so full, I don't think it's probably going to go up as high as a 10, but it is possible that it might. You can see there that sub-adult chewing on the edge of the ribs and trying to get that little bit of meat between the ribs. And those growls that we get from the lions just come out. Then this lioness looks like, oh no, she doesn't. She thought about chasing the vultures and then decided it was too much effort. So being this close to lions feeding, William was wondering how can we feel the vibrations of the growls? And you can, and it is an incredible sound. It's sort of something that chills you through to your insides, and it's a very primal sound. You can imagine something that you know is quite dangerous, and for me it's probably one of the best sounds in the bush. I mean, being close to lions when they roar, when they fight, is just absolutely incredible. And as you can see, this carcass is disappearing, so we might get a little bit more aggression this morning. So we will be sitting here for a while longer, watching what's going on and feeling those vibrations. You can imagine if we were sort of prehistoric man 200,000 years ago, wandering through the savannah and you heard those deep growls, it would be a sort of a very dangerous sound of death, we would think. But it's actually the opposite. Obviously, we know to be scared. Instinctively, we are scared of that noise from lions. But prehistoric man, and not even man that long ago, the Maasai, still to this day in Kenya and Tanzania, will hear that sound and go, oh, free meat. And they will often charge in and chase lions off a kill and take pieces of meat. Only during the day. It is a sort of age-old happening in Africa that humans scavenge from lions, especially off fresh carcasses. Wait till sort of 11, 12 in the morning. You get a group of friends together and you run screaming at the lions, and the lions get the fight of their life. They disappear. You cut off a leg of buffalo and you happily head home with dinner. And sometimes you try to take as much as possible and leave very little for the lions. And that is why lions and humans have a very interesting relationship when we walk them on foot during the day. This sort of dynamic has been going on for 200,000 years. Whereas at night, lions are the boss, and we don't even try mess with them, because that would be tickets for us, I'm afraid. You can see a little sneaking going on at the head again. You can see some of the lions lifted their head there. Some of the white-backed vultures have found a piece of bone that they're busy fighting over. We can't really see it from where we are, but we can hear them, that and that's the vultures. There's a smack to the head by Junior. So, quite often after lions have a big feed, they do like to drink. They're not reliant on water, though. They can get enough moisture from the blood in their kills. But so far, these lions, I'm pretty sure from the tracks I've seen, have not left this carcass. They haven't gone anywhere for a drink yet. And that's a question from Amanda in Alabama, was wondering whether they've gone for a drink. I'm quite sure once they've finished here, they will, though. See, I still think the aggression level there we go, that's probably nearly a 5. You can see Junior is starting to become a bit more dominant over the carcass as it gets less and less. And he's actually started to lie on the pieces of the carcass. Very, very much a male lion trait. Try and make sure no one else can get to it. So Junior is dominant over, in these positions, dominant over even the oldest and senior lionesses, just because he's physically bigger. In lion life, the bigger you are and the more aggressive you are, the more dominant you are. So what we do quite often is that I feel this is the best spot to be in the action at the moment. We're really nice and close, and we can see all the little dynamics happening. You can see how all the other lions are moving to the other side of the carcass, away from Junior. The male lion there. He's going to try to pull it away from everyone else. As you can see, there's very little left of this carcass, especially with that Matimba male coming in. And this lioness has got a leg that she doesn't want to let go. So I'm pretty sure they'll probably finish up here during the day sometime, probably sleep in this area, and then maybe move off to have a drink on the sunset safari at some point. Or they could just keep sleeping here. And that is to do, Ashley was just wondering when would they hunt again after such a nice big meal. Well, Ashley, after such a big meal, lions would possibly even hunt again in 15 minutes if an opportunity arose. Like most predators out here, they are opportunists and will take any opportunity to get a chance at a meal and not have to hunt again. But generally they would really need to hunt after a meal like this after sort of 3 or 4 days. But obviously if opportunity arises before then, they will definitely hunt. But I think probably for today and probably most of tonight, they're going to be quite stationary. But the Nkuhuma Pride have proved me wrong on many occasions before, and they might move and might hunt again. You never know. That's the wonderful thing about the bush. Nothing is ever set in stone. The ears starting to go flat on the sub-adults as she moves closer. So we've seen Junior issue a few whacks at the different lions, and Karen's just commenting, would he smack his mother too? Karen, unfortunately, he would smack her just as quickly as he would smack any of the other lions in this pride. Very much a patriarchal society, lion prides. And yeah, oh. So as we see, the lions literally demolish the dregs of this buffalo. Bree's asking, is it ever plentiful enough that the lions will only eat the choice parts and leave? It can happen in certain circumstances, not very often though, Bree. Times of drought when animals are dying naturally around water sources and stuff, you can often see lions will eat a little bit on this one, eat a little bit on that one, and then leave the majority of the meat for the other scavengers and other predators. But it is it's far more unusual, but it does happen from time to time. Well, Junior seems to have found a little bit of meat at the base of the neck there. It's really stuck in. we were fortunate enough to watch incredible teamwork of this lion pride as they brought down this buffalo. And Brenda from Virginia was wondering, would the lionesses ever work as a team to fight off a male lion like Junior? Possibly not with Junior, but I have seen it before with pride takeovers, especially when a pride might have cubs. The lionesses sometimes, not always, it's more of an abnormal rather than a normal, will band together and fight and attack a new male. So that does happen, but it is very uncommon. The problem is that if a male lion really decides to go at a female, even a group of females, he will seriously injure them. So often it's not worth the risk for the females to do that. Even with a young male lion the size of Junior, he is so much physically stronger than them that it isn't really worth the risk of actually really sustainably attacking him, continuously attacking him, because he would get to the point where when he retaliates, it would be very detrimental to one or more of the lionesses. And you can see they are trying to stay clear of young Junior now after he has issued. It is possible that he is behaving more dominant now that Matimba male has left. And those noises might have attracted that male back in, but last I heard he was heading south towards our southern boundary. He's still on Juma at the moment, but I don't think for very much longer. Well, Junior's got some competition as the rest of the lionesses start moving in, but he might try to pull the carcass away again. At the moment, he just seems to be getting sinew. And he's trying to get most of that meat that's on the edge of the ribs there and on the edge of the spinal column. We've been really lucky to spend so much time with lions recently. And William's got a question about the life expectancy. Is there a difference between the life expectancy of a male and a female lion? Most definitely, William. Males very seldom get beyond sort of 11, 12 years old. There's a lot of competition, and especially in this area, where these females can sometimes live as long as 15 in the wild, but generally 14, 15 is about the edge of the range. Obviously there have been exceptions. There we go. He's going to pull the carcass away again. And one lioness has got hold of some of the skin and trying to stop him. Tug of war is about to ensue. As I said, the male lion is quite capable of pulling a carcass and the other lioness is attached to it. And old Junior's still got quite a lot of growing to do. And you can see that one female cutting through a piece of the hide. Oh. It looks like he's going to try pull the carcass away from the females again. Just trying to get to that meat that's underneath that very thick piece of hide, and a lot of that hide at the neck has been folded up. We really are getting to the last legs of this buffalo. So while we keep a watch out on what's happening here, we're going to cross across to Scotty, who's with the other feline, and I know one of your favorites. So let's go check what Scotty and Sindile have been up to.
Apologies folks, you caught us a little bit off guard there as we repositioned the vehicle, and the dodgy new camera heads that have arrived are creating a bit of a nightmare for Bryan. But we are back with Sindile. A few vehicles have come and left, so we've done our job by making space for some people. More are coming, but we have snuck back in to keep an eye on this sleepy young male leopard busy digesting some impala that he fed on last night. Now, it's always a tricky thing whether to leave animals that are asleep or to stay with them. But because he's a youngster, I think it might be worth us investing some time in him in the hope that once he has had a snooze, he may get up and be a little bit playful, possibly try and hunt down tree squirrels, dwarf mongooses, francolins, anything really that rustles through this vegetation will get his attention, and his natural instinct to hunt will kick in. And we've been very fortunate in viewing his coming on 12 months on the planet, and I always wonder, wouldn't it be nice to know how many kills he's made, even if they are small, even if it's a grasshopper when he was just a few months old up till now. I think we would be flabbergasted at the amounts of animals he has successfully caught. I don't think it's going to happen right now though, as you can see, but we just thought we'd give you a quick update on what he's up to. There's been no sign of his mother yet, but that's not to say she's not sleeping nearby. But I'm guessing she may have already headed off, and her maternal instincts would have kicked in, and she's going to be wanting to secure their next meal.
So lioness closest to Junior is busy deconstructing the face. So the one side of that buffalo skull was all the skin and the meat from the cheek, and that was completely removed. And now she's busy doing it to the other side. And it's going to be quite a grotesque, almost scene when you have those empty eye sockets staring back at you. Hear that strong wind blowing. It's quite a cold wind, even though that we've got a beautiful clear day. It's still very chilly with this wind. So we had that Matimba male lion at this carcass earlier this morning, and he's disappeared, and Tax just let me know that he was having a drink. And Dirk is just wondering, when will he come back? Well, Dirk, he might not at all. There isn't much left of this carcass. He might just find a nice shady spot to sleep for the day. But it is possible he will come back. And when, I have no idea, but hopefully in the next 20 minutes or so. A little bit more aggression. Still not much beyond a 2 or 3, I reckon. And one of the lionesses that was lying behind Wium has come back to join. A whole pile of vultures have just landed and arrived around us. And now one of the little sub-adults is departing. So just a quick update for everyone who might have logged in a bit late. And earlier on the sunrise safari, there was an adult male lion here, one of the Matimba males, and he was feeding off the neck and feeding quite aggressively and not letting the rest of the pride really eat. And he then headed off, and Tax had a view of him drinking at one of the water holes close by, and it looked like he might be heading back in this direction. So Pam from Florida was wondering, when did this male lion arrive? He arrived before we got out this morning, so possibly sometimes in the early hours of this morning or even late last night he would have arrived, and he did eat a fair portion, judging from his belly size, of this carcass. So we're hoping he might move back into this area, but it is possible with this little of the carcass left that he might not. So we had the one Matimba male, and then I did get an update from Andrew while we were off air that the other Matimba male is down to the east with the Styx Pride. And Ellen from the Big Apple is wondering, does that mean that that other Matimba male is the father of the Styx cubs? Ellen, it doesn't at all. What it means is that, well, the Matimba males are dominant over a couple of prides, and they spend time with all the prides, and it's near impossible to say which of those two males is possibly the father. They might not even be the father. In certain areas, and with new research that's been done, 48% of lion cubs born to prides are not sired by the dominant males in the coalition. They are from outsiders and nomadic males that sort of sneak around the peripheries and will mate with lionesses and estrus. And quite often the lionesses will mate with multiple males, including these nomadic males. And that's obviously quite good for the genetic pool of lions. But in the mind or the behavior of the two Matimba males, they will behave like those cubs are theirs, even if they're not, but they will have known they've mated with that lioness while she was an estrus, and they will think that they are their cubs. So it is nearly impossible, without doing genetics on those cubs, taking blood samples or collecting fecal samples and comparing that against the sort of the DNA of one of the adult males, to say whether those are the males or not. So, William's commenting, wondering whether I would donate some of my mane to Junior if he needed it. Well, William, I'm quite attached to my mane, so unfortunately I think I would keep it for myself. But while we stay here and keep a tab whether that other Matimba male makes his way back into this position, I still think my mane's probably a bit more grown a bit more than Junior's. He's still got a bit of catching up to do. But while we have a look and wait for the possibility of that Matimba male coming back, we're going to cross across to Scotty, who's checking out some water.
Well, welcome back everyone, and we've taken your advice and requests and headed over into a different area of Arathusa. We are here at the waterhole, and you can see the whole camp in the background. They've got stunning views of this large waterhole, and as you would have seen briefly, there's a raft of hippos just in front of us, and it really is a wonderful scene. You may hear some strange noises of a construction site. They're doing some renovations at the camp. But don't let that bother you if you do hear any audio, because we can still enjoy a sighting of these hippo. There's one youngster you can see in the front. It's considerably smaller than the other two that you can see there. It's not newly born, but it certainly is a youngster, maybe 6 months old as a rough guess. Look at that difference in size of head compared to the one in the background. The wind has picked up all of a sudden, kind of in the last half an hour. It's turned into a windy day, which is keeping us nice and cool as the sun begins to beat down on us. And one of the requests to go and look for animals was from Teresa, and she was hoping that we would go and look for hippos, so I'm glad Teresa's request has been fulfilled. And that is the great thing about these interactive live safaris. From around the world, you can have an impact and an influence on where we go and what we do, and I really love that. Now hippos will spend the majority of their day in the water, but occasionally may head out to sun themselves. They do have sensitive skin though, so they like to lie in the water to protect their skin. But at night they will travel long distances, especially now in the winter months when food becomes more scarce. They will be searching predominantly for grass, and they feed on about 40 kilograms, I'm told, every night would be your average dietary requirements of a hippopotamus, and it is strictly grass that they will feed on. I wonder what these two are up to. They've moved position, the two on the left of your screen. And the fact that one is right behind the other could indicate that it's a male trailing a female with the hope of some mating opportunities. So maybe we will get lucky. It's something that I've seen very, very rarely, and it does happen in the water, so it can be difficult to tell exactly what's going on. Oh, they can move incredibly quickly through water, and don't be fooled if you do see a hippopotamus in water. Don't feel that you're safe. They can be quite aggressive animals and actually kill more people in Africa than any other mammal. Now, we must elaborate on that, because it's not because they're ferocious and simply attack humans whenever they get the opportunity to, but an important factor into that equation is because of the fact that they can occur outside of national parks, following watercourses. And a lot of people within South Africa and Africa still rely on rivers and dams as their source of water, where they can wash their clothes and gather drinking water. And it's this human traffic going to the water, combined with the traffic of the hippo that live there, that can cause conflict. And I did touch on it very briefly earlier, but Linda would like to know, why do they spend so much time in the water? It's mainly because of their sensitive skin. It's not designed to withstand the African sun for hours on end. But they can be seen sunning themselves for portions of the day, especially in the winter months when the sun is not as harsh. But I guess they feel safer and more relaxed wallowing in the water. They're not floating where you see them. They'll always be standing. Yay! We were hoping to see a little bird that's on the left of your screen now. There's a fork-tailed drongo hovering above it. And the one we're interested in is not only the fork-tailed drongo, but more importantly, the little brown bird that's wading along the leaves. And it's got very, very long toes, which help it to disperse its weight as it walks along this aquatic vegetation in search of little insects. And it's a very pretty bird called an African jacana. Now, because it's so far away, I'm going to just get a picture in the book for you, because it's certainly worth showing you. And like I say, it's mainly hunting aquatic insects, but will also occasionally eat small fish and even a bit of plant matter. Well, this page on the bird book has a range of really wonderful different birds, so take a closer look. The African jacana is this individual here, so that's who we're looking at. Sadly, it's a little bit far off, but you'll notice the very big long toes and feet, which will help disperse its weight evenly, allowing it to walk on even lily pads. And then as Bryan zooms out, there's a few other birds that are actually very rare to see in the Kruger National Park, the crakes and the snipes. I've never seen a greater painted snipe in my whole life. That would be great to see. But African snipe I've seen occasionally, and both corn crakes and African crakes, very rare birds to see, but we could get lucky one day. Good, well now you've got an idea of who the African jacana is. It's hard to get confused with anything else out here really, so that's an easy one for you to identify going forward, and a good one to add to your bird list. Now, we are trying to boost your interest in ornithology, because when the big cats are hiding or sleeping, the birds are often always active. And interestingly enough, if we get lucky enough to get close to a lot of the smaller birds, you'll really appreciate their beauty, and it's merely their size that causes people to overlook them. And that's why quite often the bigger animals and the mammals are more easily fallen in love with, because everybody knows exactly what they look like and they're easy to see. But that's not to say that we can't get you some closer up views of some birds like the tiny little blue waxbill that are incredibly pretty. So it's something worth opening your mindsets to, and it's also an important part of the safari experience. It's not just about the big mammals, but it's also about the insects and the birds, and just the fact that we're out here in this incredible wilderness having an adventure, looking for anything interesting really. Well, I think we can possibly continue from here and see what else is going on nearby. Sindile is still fast asleep. Well, actually, let's take a closer look here. We've got a hippo who's dressed up for a masquerade party in stealth mode. Look at that. Very interesting wig or headdress that this hippo has adopted. Now you can see a lot of this aquatic vegetation here in the waterhole, and Sandy in Texas would like to know if this is bad. Certain aquatic vegetation can be bad if it's an alien species, but as far as I'm aware, this shouldn't be a problem, and if anything, it will help oxygenate the water, which will allow fish and other animals to live in here. So as long as aquatic vegetation is indigenous, it usually creates oxygen for not only the fish but also the aquatic insects that live in this water, and it also creates microhabitats for insects and fish to live in, for small fish to hide away from bigger fish that may eat them. So if anything, I think in this situation it's a good thing that we have aquatic vegetation here. And Susan in the Netherlands is also interested to know whether the hippos will ever eat the aquatic vegetation that we see here. Nope, it is just grass that they feed on. Possibly in times of extreme drought they may be inclined to do something slightly different and feed on it, but as far as I'm aware they only feed on grass, and they just use the aquatic vegetation for wigs and masks like we've just seen. Well, there is apparently some action unfolding here, so let's take a quick closer look. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but things are heating up ever so slightly, and one or two hippo have come from another portion of the waterhole into this area, and it appears like they are greeting one another and working out who's who and what's what. I thought we may get a little bit of action there, but it appears to have subsided. Okay, well, I'm getting impatient and feel the urge to prosper forth to see what other animals we can find. So come along and actually let's head across the dam wall, and I'm going to head off to one of my favorite roads on Arathusa, which wind us towards the airstrip. We'll be taken through a grove of marula trees, which is really pretty. Don't fly away. This is going to be awesome. No, don't go. It's just turned around, but that's not a problem because it could hop around again at any moment. This is a red-billed hornbill, one of the more comical looking birds we get out here. And in this beautiful morning sunlight right behind us, this is a fantastic view. It's the smallest of the hornbills that we get in this area. It's got a cousin that looks very similar other than the beak, which is yellow, and that's quite easily called the yellow-billed hornbill. So the red-billed and the yellow-billed are the two main hornbills that we will see here. But we also get the southern grey hornbill, which has a grey beak, as well as ground hornbills from time to time. They are chatting very quietly and intermittently to one another. There's another one up to the right of it. We can't see it very clearly, but it is up in there. And I'm guessing they've already spent some time this morning foraging for little insects and grass seeds that they'll feed on. They're omnivorous. And now we're taking some time out to make sure their feathers are all clean and intact. We've got a good idea of the strong breeze that's blowing through Arathusa at the moment. As you can see, the leaves and the branches blowing in the wind. Now, we saw a little bit of potential action heating up with the hippo earlier. It hasn't amounted to anything, but Dylan is interested to know, when hippos do fight, will they fight underwater, or will it usually be on the surface where we can see them? In my experience, hippos will typically be in areas where they can stand, and it's unlikely that they would go off into deeper water to have a fight where they wouldn't be able to open their mouths very easily without water going in. So all the fights that I've seen have either been on land or in water, but where they can stand. So it's kind of, their heads are submerged, and that's important because their mouths can gape open extremely wide, almost 180 degrees, and this is how they fight with one another. They've got two teeth that come out of their jaws like this, and another two larger tusks that come out the side like that, and they use a combination of the two pushing in and pulling up to attack one another. It can be very, very brutal hippo fights, and a lot of blood and scratches. Thankfully, their skin is very thick and it often doesn't cause fatal injuries to them, but you can see hippos looking very worse for wear, lacerated all over their back and necks and mouth. It's often a very bloody affair, but it isn't something we see hugely often, although we did get to see some hippo fighting at the Nkuhuma waterhole not very long ago, and that was incredible to witness. A whole lot of blood and water getting gushed from side to side as they fought with one another. So it does happen, but it's not something that we see very commonly. I guess that's because at the moment there's not really many hippo on Nkuhuma, and we don't spend too much time here, but thankfully there's a waterhole cam here 24 hours a day, and if any action were to unfold, we would be alerted to it either by that or by the Arathusa guides. Just want to creep along a bit. I've seen another bird. Let's see how close we can get to this hornbill though. This is very close. You're going to be able to see it. Oh, almost. And we'll just slowly creep along past them, all our little hornbills, and see if we can get you an angle on a hammerkop, another aquatic bird, and it's actively hunting. I can't seem to see what it's catching, but it is catching something down to our left. Let's get the binoculars out, get you zoomed in there. Try and work out what exactly it's eating. It could be tiny little catfish. And you can see how it's using its feet to shovel up any little morsels. But whatever they are tiny. And he's eating them in a rapid succession. Possibly little tadpoles. It always astonishes me how effectively these aquatic birds can hunt in such murky water, and it's testament to how well they've adapted and evolved to their specific hunting niche. It's got a bizarre shaped head, and that's how its name has been originated from a Dutch word, hammerkop, meaning hammerhead. So Susan in the Netherlands would probably very well understand without us giving her that explanation. But for some of you in other parts around the world, it may have been a little bit more useful. I can hear those hornbills calling behind us, and you can possibly as well. Doop, 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 doop. It's kind of the initial parts of their chorus. They haven't got into full swing, but they were thinking about it, and when they do, they hold their wings high up above their heads. It creates a wonderful display. So I just made sure they weren't doing that, and it appears they are not ready to give us a full show. Wonderful. Well, because this little hammerkop's catching such small prey, I think we might continue and see what else we can see out here. They certainly are capable of catching bigger fish and frogs and aquatic animals. What a beautiful view this is from this angle of the waterhole. Well, I'm very happy to have board with us this morning, because she's highlighted something which I've yet to inform you much about this morning, and all the action and chaos that's been unfolding. And Judy's asked, was there any remains of the impala kill that Shadow and her cub made that we found yesterday evening? And when we got there, there was not even a scrap or a sign that there was an impala there yesterday. There was a lot of hyena tracks in that area, and possibly 5 to 10 hyena came in and squabbled over that kill. And like I said, there's not even a horn or a hoof in that general area. And that's often the case with smaller kills. And interestingly enough, even if we go back to the buffalo carcass where Brent has been spending time with you this morning, even if we go back there tomorrow morning, you would be very surprised to see that the crime scene would have almost been completely erased, and most of the carcass would have been carried off by hyena, leaving behind only the heavy skull and horns in all likelihood, and even that may be some distance off from where the lions are currently feeding on it. Another question has just come through, also relating to the kill and the leopards, and it's from Meladia, and I would like to know, did Sindile look full-bellied this morning? And he didn't, but the only reason why he didn't look full-bellied is because we couldn't see his belly. He was lying down and making it very difficult for us to determine how full-bellied he was. But what I can assure you is that they did get a very decent meal out of that impala, even up to the point where early last evening when we left them, it could have taken them, the hyena, a couple of hours to find them. That will always be unknown to us. But when we did come across them yesterday evening, they were lying up next to the carcass, already saturated or satiated with impala meats. They couldn't squeeze any more at that stage, and if they'd have waited a little bit more time, they would have then been able to feed on a little bit more gradually. But typically a kill of that size would have lasted 2 leopards of that size about 48 hours, depending on how hungry they were when they arrived. So they only would have got a small portion of that impala, but it was still a full belly, as much as they could feed on initially, which means he'll be in good stead for at least the next 2 or 3 days before he even gets too hungry again. And even if Shadow didn't make a kill for a week, he would still be around, just looking a little bit thin. So they can survive for long periods of time without food once they have had a fairly decent meal. Also, because we don't spend as much time with them as we would like, we don't get to know exactly what little meals they may help keep themselves going on. So if he was to catch a little scrub hare or a tree squirrel, that little meal would keep him going. But we only spend a fraction of their lives with them, and therefore a lot unfolds without us there. So we're not sure what little meals or snacks they could have in between. His mother could, for example, also catch a small antelope that they could both finish in an hour, like a duiker or a steenbuck, and if they're both hungry, they could finish that off for an hour or so without us even knowing that they've been successful in hunting. Oh, this looks good. This looks like some male leopard tracks. I'm just going to jump out to check. Small victories, small victories. It's not the leopard, but there are tracks heading in the same direction as us. And who knows, it could be the Anderson male. He is pushing into this area, which is normally Tingana's territory. So either one of the two of them could be responsible for walking down this road, in all likelihood sometime last night. Now, if any of you have got any lucky charms or special dances that you do when you are in hope of getting lucky, please start doing them or get those lucky charms out, because it would be incredible if we could get you the second visual of the Anderson male. We've only seen him once on Safari Live, and it was just for a very brief moment. What I do want to do is try and show you these tracks, but they have already disappeared off the road. So not ideal, but what that means is he could be lying somewhere very close by, so we just want to make sure we haven't overlooked that. Usually when leopards follow roads, they will stay on them for a fair portion of time, but in this case it was just a few meters that he was on it, and now he's veered off. So we're going to send you back to Brent, which will allow myself to snoop around this area and establish which direction he's come from and which direction he's generally going in, and that gives us a good idea of what we should do next. Wish us luck and enjoy Brent and whatever he's up to. See you later.
Welcome back, everyone. So we actually moved the vehicle, and then the lions dragged the carcass even closer to us. And it says almost nothing left. So as I was saying, as the carcass gets less and less, there's a bit more aggression coming through. And Junior has had his fill and is lying off to the back, and the lionesses are competing for what little meat is left. So as this carcass is rapidly diminishing, Lynn in Canada is wondering which lion will take the initiative to lead them off and move along to the next area. Well, then it'll be one of the adult lionesses, possibly one of the older adult lionesses that does that, and it'll be quite interesting to see which one. Hopefully we are around when that happens. I think they'll probably move towards the closest water, or not necessarily the closest water, but towards water. I'm not sure whether they would head. I personally think they might head towards the Buffalo's Hook waterhole rather than the Twin Dams waterhole. That's the area they came from. So they might head off towards the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. But now, so these lions have dragged this carcass closer to us. There's probably less than 4 foot between the nose of the buffalo and our vehicle at the moment. There we go, you can see, which is absolutely incredible. As you can see, there's quite a bit of argument and dragging of the carcass as this gets less and less. There's only a tiny bit of meat left around the neck. There is still some meat left on the ribs and that, but very, very little. But the best bits are stuck around the neck at the moment. And there we can hear that crunching that sounds like almost like bones, but it's not. It's actually the cutting of the really thick buffalo hide to try and get to that last little bit of meat that's left underneath. The lioness closest to us, sort of under the horn, has eaten the ear off and is busy eating what's left of the ear. And those two just behind it basically gripped onto a similar, or the one to the right gripped onto the piece and not letting go while the other is cutting through the thick hide of the buffalo. So we have 4 adult lionesses feeding at the moment. Going to keep quiet so you guys can listen to that incredible sound. You can actually see there how they've managed to cut through that skin. If we go just behind the buffalo horn where that lioness is licking, you can see it's almost a perfect clean cut as they've both got onto the same piece of skin, and now it's a bit of a battle of wills. See how flat their ears are? Oh, there we go. One on the right one, but it's got another sneaking in to try and get underneath. So obviously some of this meat is putrid already, so what we would consider rotten. And Diane in England was wondering, do lions have specialized bacteria in their stomach that enables them to deal with such putrid meat? And would they get food poisoning like humans do if they had to eat bad meat? Lions would definitely not get food poisoning. Their system is designed to be able to deal with such rotten meat. You would think nothing could ever eat it. So lion, leopard, hyena, all have different bacteria in their stomach that do help them break down these very putrid meats. But lions have no problem eating completely rotten meat, and they definitely do have specialized bacteria that would help with this. And they definitely don't get food poisoning from bad meat. So we have noticed some really wonderful behavior since we've been with this carcass, even after that incredible hunt we witnessed. Then if we just go to that pile of sand over there. Sorry guys, I'm just going to take you away from the lions for a second. Because Diane in Pittsburgh noticed some interesting behavior that we did speak about a little bit yesterday. You see there's that pile of sand there, and both the young male and the females, sorry, Sharon in Pittsburgh, we noticed digging and burying something in the sand. And what they were doing was burying the stomach contents, so the undigested grasses from the buffalo's stomach. And that was to try stop the smell spreading too quickly. The smell was always going to spread, but it's just to try help, and that's to try keep the carcass hidden from other predators, be it the lions do this quite regularly. Most predators are well aware they're in the area just because of their feeding habits, and because they make so much noise while they're eating. All this growling and that to an animal like a hyena or a male lion will be heard from miles away. And I could actually hear some of the growling last night from our camp, which is probably over 3 kilometers away. This lioness closest to us is getting into the eye socket. She's eaten the whole side of the cheek and whatnot, and now it looks like she's got the second eye out. There's that amber-eyed lioness, just that slightly darker eyes than the others. Very, very beautiful creature. And she is my favorite lioness in the Nkuhuma Pride. Those eyes just seem to go straight through you. So if one of these lionesses were to die, and they're a very tight community, the female lionesses, and they're all related, Virginia would like to know whether they would accept another lioness into the pride. Virginia is from Kentucky, and unfortunately not Virginia, and there would have to be another related lioness, possibly from if the pride got very big and split at some stage. They then might accept another lioness into the pride. But if it was an unrelated lioness or a nomadic lioness, they most definitely wouldn't accept another lioness into the pride. That middle lioness doesn't even seem to be eating. She's just holding on for when she feels like the need to eat again. So just an update on the Matimba male. He has not made his way back to his carcass. He was found sleeping in the Mawati drainage line, in that nice big fat belly full of buffalo. So he's decided to go sleep on the nice cool sand in the drainage line. So guys, would you like to stay here for the last few minutes, or should we go look for that male lion? I think personally probably more's going to happen here with them feeding, and we're just going to find a sleepy male lion if we go look for him. But it is up to you guys. We did have a nice view of him this morning, but if anyone did log in a little bit later, they might have missed him. So what an incredible morning so far, and lots of action around this buffalo carcass, and Scotty's been had some luck with young Sindile, so that's great, and felt like we hadn't seen a leopard in ages. And good work to Scotty last night finding him, and then following up again this morning. But so let me know, and you can do that by emailing us. Should we stay or should we go? Questions at WildEarth.tv, or you can use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. So those of you who might be new and joined, Boulouret is just wondering when exactly was this kill. It was on the Sunset Safari 2 nights ago. So they've been on this carcass for 2 full nights and 1 full day. and it is almost completely finished. I guess they would be here for 3 days if it was just the Pride, but we had the Matimba male who consumed a considerable chunk of that over the night before departing. So I think they'll possibly stay here for the rest of the day, and there's a good chance they'll be around here at the sunset safari, but I think they will move on after that. Maybe sometime during the night, or what gave them a fright? Junior. Oh, this is going to be... Now they've all got to try fight for their positions again. Junior just got up and, in a strange way, and gave all the lions a fright. Now there could be a bit more growling and whatnot. Junior, what are you doing? So it has been quite incredible that they actually dragged this buffalo carcass closer to us. So we are sort of in the prime spot at the moment, less than sort of 3 feet from those buffalo's horns. How's it, F? Sharp and full. It'll be interesting to see if they are still here during the sunset safari, whether the hyenas, now that they're really full and the male's not here, decide to make a play at this carcass. So guys, we're going to stay here, I think, for the last few minutes of drive. It is the best chance of seeing interesting interaction between these cats, and we'll definitely try follow up on that big Matimba male on the sunset safari, as well as the Nkuhumas, to see how much of this carcass is actually left. So as we see this lioness tugging on the skull and the head of this deceased buffalo, Kevin would like to know, is the brain still inside? I would say most definitely, Kevin. A lion, unfortunately, even with their powerful jaws, is not going to be able to get into that brain cavity and get to the brain. So I'm pretty sure it is still inside. So we've seen quite a bit of aggression between these lions, but still very mild compared to how aggressive a lion can get. And Joe was wondering, on Joe's contacting us via Twitter, whether lionesses would partake in territorial disputes with either the male lions or with other lionesses. Most definitely they would very vigorously defend their territory and home range against other lionesses, and those battles can become very brutal. For example, if they were happen to come across the stick lionesses, they would definitely try to chase them away or fight with them, and if they came across those cubs they would kill them. So lionesses do partake in territorial battles, but between the lionesses they wouldn't really get involved in the males' territorial battles. What they would do is try and move away from the new males that are moving into the territory, especially if they have younger animals with the pride, but quite often those new males would eventually catch up with them and kill any younger animal, forcing the females into an estrous cycle. So we're going to be right here. We're just going to cross to Scotty quickly, and then we'll be back for the last few minutes with the Nkuhuma Pride.
Welcome back, everyone, and happy to hear that you've been getting some great sightings of the Nkuhuma Pride, finishing off the remains of that buffalo kill. It's going to be very interesting to see what's happened there this afternoon, whether the vultures have come down and started feeding. So still good prospects for a little bit later on the sunset safari. We had no further luck following the tracks of a male leopard that were heading towards the Arathusa airstrip, but interestingly enough, we did find tracks of wild dog in that area. So there is a pack who's denning probably about 5 or 6 miles away from us here, but they are beginning to push further and further afield in terms of hunting. And now we know that the Arathusa airstrip is a good place to maybe come first thing in the morning in the hope that we may get these wild dogs hunting. The reason why they're not pushing further into Arathusa and Juma is because they're currently denning and they need to get back a whole bunch of their tracks on the road here. Let's see if I can get 1 or 2 of them for you. There we should be able to see a couple. But there's a lot of vehicles that have passed by. You will see though the distinctive 3 lobes of the leopard tracks. There are some hyena tracks amongst them, but this is where all the action went down. And we tracked them a long way from here to get to where we got a visual of Sindile later on. Anyway, I guess we've gone full circle from where we actually started the morning here, hoping to find Shada and her cub with their kill, but like I said, it was stolen. Anyway, it was a wonderful morning again and great to share it with all of you, so thanks for joining. Thanks very much to Bryan on camera, and also to Nikki for directing the show, and for Tara for lending a hand. We're going to send you back to Brent for the last few minutes. We'll see you all this afternoon.